Father, we just thank you for this day and this time we can come and discuss county business and decisions. That's what's best for you. Thank you for this time of year as we celebrate Christ, and we just thank you that we can have this opportunity to do it. Father, just be with us as we go through the agenda, that we might do what's best for Hendry County. Be with our men and women that's out fighting for our freedom, that we might stand here. Be with their families. Watch over them during the Christmas season and all year long. We give you the praise for everything. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
This is a regular meeting of the Hendry County Board of County Commissioners being held on Tuesday, December 12, 2017 at 5 p.m. in the County Commission Chambers in LaBelle, Florida. In attendance are Chairman Michael Swindle, Vice Chair Darrell Harris, Commissioner Emma Byrd, Commissioner Mitchell Wills, Commissioner Carson Turner, County Administrator Charles Chapman, County Attorney Mark Lapp, and Clerk Barbara Butler.
Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is the 2018 board appointments and reorganization. First thing on that list is the re-election of the chairman. I've been chairman for 2 years. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. If there's anyone who wants to step up, I would gladly support them and pass the gavel.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to have a very brief discussion, and I will start with making a motion for Commissioner Mitch Wills, and I'd like to justify that if anyone is not supportive of it, to be the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners.
I have no problem with it.
I'm in great support of it. Are you in support of it, Commissioner Wills?
I have no problem with it either.
Perfect. Perfect. That's awesome.
Mr. Chair, you think anybody might second it?
I'll second it.
All right.
Motion moved by Commissioner Turner to appoint Commissioner Wills to chairperson, and seconded by Commissioner Harris. Any discussion?
Just, I want to thank you for your time as chairman. I know how trying it is. I'm glad that we're rolling it over to a representation from LaBelle, and just out of being respectful of Commissioner Harris and the fact that he's going to be running an election campaign, and you as well, I do not want to put you guys through having to balance all of those acts, because I've done it, and so I'm looking forward to Commissioner Wills getting in that position.
Me too.
We are too. I am too.
Any further discussion? Any negative discussion?
Mr. Harris is just a little too quick there. No.
Seeing none, all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carries.
No, sir. I'm
Nominate.
Wait a minute. We got to do something first.
They're going to switch places.
Oh, man.
Barbara, show him them. Hey, Mitch, see them books over there? You got to sign them for you.
You got to sign every one of those papers.
You know, Mr. Harris, I really used to like you. Question that right now. Mr. Swindle, what have you done to me, sir?
I move nominate
Perfect. I'm okay with that.
Emma Byrd, Vice
Second.
Chair.
We have a motion and a second.
Well, you got to say who they're by.
I was about to.
Okay.
Be patient. I'm new at this. I know you've been there a while,
Real
but I'm
new.
kind of new at this. As in like 30 seconds new, so patience, please. I have a motion by Mr. Harris and a second by Commissioner Turner, Ms. Byrd, to be represented as Vice President of the Board. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Mr. Chair, on the appointments, rather than go over all of them, could we just see if anybody wants to change anything on it and take those changes?
Yeah, I believe that's kind of how we did that, the meeting, with the first meeting we did this with us, so if there is any changes, we can look at those now. The agriculture and labor, I don't have the list of the ones actually there now.
I want to say that's Miss Kim Ross.
It is.
I'm going to allow her to stay there.
Awesome.
She's done a good job in the community. So if nobody disagrees, Kim Ross will stay there wherever.
Okay, and then, Mr. Chair, on the canvassing committee, that would be yourself. I will volunteer to be that second alternate on the canvassing committee, if y'all are good with that.
Yeah, well, no, Mitch would have to do that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Mitch and Emma, or you.
Yep, well, so I did want to jump in it, and then Ms. Bird, if you'd get it the following year or whoever it rolls into. You good with that?
Yeah, because
Okay.
we can't.
Yes, sir, I knew that. Yep.
It's another job, Mitch.
We'll discuss that after the meeting, Mr. Harris.
Commissioner Turner, you gonna be the alternate on the canvassing?
Yes, ma'am.
He is. And Economic Development Council,
I'd like
have any
to-
changes there?
I'd like to stay there.
Why don't we, if there's any changes, just somebody speak up.
The Heartland's not,
That's a new one.
so that, Commissioner Harris, I think you've been on
Yeah,
there.
they don't never put it on here, though.
Okay.
I add it to the bottom, the TPO.
Commissioner Swindle, you're going to stay on the Pharaoh?
That's fine.
Okay. I would like to, for the first time ever, step off of the RPC. Ms. Bird, would you consider getting on there?
Regional
The Southwest
Planning
Florida
Council.
Regional Planning Council?
Okay, that'll be fine.
It's a great opportunity to network and potentially has the ability to help us, but more importantly, I think has the potential to hurt us if we're not at the table. Ms. Julie Wilkins is very,
We have a meeting there tomorrow.
yeah,
Do they meet
neither
once
one of
a
us can
month?
make.
They meet the third.
They meet the third Thursday of every month.
Third Thursday, okay.
9 o'clock in Fort Myers.
Would you like to go to that, Commissioner Harris?
No,
Okay. I didn't think you would. I knew the moment you get outside of the Henry County jurisdiction, you get a little,
jittery.
yeah.
Have any other changes on here as far as board?
Mr. Chair, if I might, I would like to make sure that the board is still wanting to continue with staff appointments for public risk management or insurance company. Last year, Mrs. Jennifer Davis and Mrs. Adelia Bustamante were authorized to carry the insurance board for the county commission. Is that still the pleasure of
Is
the
that
board?
a quarterly meeting?
I believe it is quarterly. Is that right?
There's 2 meetings each quarter, one for health, one for property.
Okay.
Ms. Davis, do you think, I mean, we've gone a number of years now without any commissioner representation, but looking at the dynamics of that board, do you think it would be beneficial for us to have an actual councilman?
It's mostly staff
Okay, all right,
and other entities.
all right,
Okay.
all right. Then I would recommend that everything stays the same with the noted changes, Mr. Chairman.
Well, second.
Motion made by Commissioner Turner, seconded by Commissioner Harris, that all the other appointees stay the same as the ones that have changed are new ones.
Just for clarification, I'm sorry to interrupt, the TPO,
That there's, I got that.
there's two blanks.
Daryl and Charles.
Shane.
Okay, Daryl and Shane.
Wait a minute. TP.
Just the new one, the red one in red.
That's the one in red, yeah.
It's not new. They just-
Heartland Regional
That's
Transportation
been on the
Planning.
list, Mr.
It's been on
Harris.
the
Did you get it in one of the new agendas?
No.
It's on one of the new ones.
I didn't get them.
Here you go. Got this one.
Okay.
Now, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And Shane.
I just want to point out that Daryl and Emma are still in the VAB, so good job, guys, good job. Yeah, all right.
They like that. We have the same person every year.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Opposed?
Just put a note on there to call them.
As Commissioner Swindle keep yelling.
Moving on to the consent. Do you have any items to be pulled on the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, just a couple of amendments to the consent agenda real quick. Item 2A, number 3, the approval of minutes for the East Hendry County Drainage District meeting needs to be pulled from the consent agenda and placed under the East Hendry County Drainage District portion of this meeting at the conclusion of tonight's regular meeting. We will be adjourning as the county commission and then reconvening as the East Hendry County Drainage District, and you need to take up that item at that time, at the end of this evening.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, where is that at again?
2A3,
2A3.
consent agenda, A, clerk of court, 3, approval of minutes,
Don't
EH.
say anything like it on mine.
I'm not seeing that either.
You don't have one of the new agendas?
We must
Yeah, if
have
you
a
didn't get one of
whole.
the new agendas when you come in, it's
Well,
it's
we got,
different.
why didn't we get one?
I would love to have the actual agenda.
This one here?
but I ask for crazy things all the time. So.
Well, after
That one was not a change.
curveball,
I
now
mean,
you
it's a
throw
move.
knuckleball behind it. Okay.
Printed.
I'm probably looking right at it, but I don't see it.
And it's just,
I don't see
But when
it.
I-
It's a different agenda.
When I looked at it, I didn't.
First page.
I was there.
Got the one Charles marked up for me.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
You seeing it now?
You said 2A.
Roman numeral 2,
Yep. A3.
3.
Okay.
The next item, Mr. Chair, we would like to pull for clarification, Roman numeral 2B, County Engineering, item number 4, the Port LaBelle Utility System Advisory Board reappointments.
Okay.
And lastly, further down in Roman numeral 2, item D, County Attorney, item 1, declaration of surplus property for 8 Montero lots. We need to move that under staff report for discussion.
move to accept with,
And also 2G.
got one more?
Yes, 2G, the calendar.
2G. Oh, the very last
Yeah,
one.
one.
Okay. The calendar.
Yeah.
Okay.
I move to accept with the,
Second?
Motion by Mr. Harris to accept the consent agenda, seconded by Commissioner Swindle. Anyone further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Take us to awards and appearances.
Mr. Chair, if we might to return to item B4 for clarification, I believe Attorney Lapp would like to clarify a few
B4?
items. Yes, sir.
Port LaBelle's used here, Mr. Parker?
For the record, Shane Parker, Henry County Engineer. On the resolution, need to change the first whereas clause to reference to interlocal agreement with Glades County, and then change the board terms from 4 years to 2 years. That's it.
Motion to approve.
Second the motion?
Easy there. Motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Byrd. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. We need to visit G1 as well, calendar.
That was pulled by Commissioner Byrd, so.
The date on the calendar, I believe that we're still in school, when they had the date for the campaign, for the, camp. And the county still will be in school during the time that it's supposed to start.
The date of May 29th as the first day of summer camp?
Yes, but we're still in school.
Okay, we will adjust that, ma'am. That was based off of a date that was set last year in conversation with the YMCA. They probably have the Lee County calendar in mind, so we'll make that adjustment.
Okay,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
was it.
Catch.
Any further discussion on that?
One small item that I wanted to make the board aware, in years past, we have done the first meeting in June and the first meeting in July only to allow for a recess for the board to take vacations, times with their family, spend time over the summer to refresh. We've had scheduling issues in the past with that, just trying to make sure people were in town. So instead of it being the first in June, first in July this year, we're doing the first in June and the second in July. That gives you a block of time in between the two meetings to be able to schedule different events that you need to handle.
That'd be fine. Do you need a motion for that?
No, sir, just providing that for you, FYI, that is a change to how we normally have scheduled our business
We'll
meetings.
get a new calendar, or is it on the old one?
Yes, sir, no, depending on your vote this evening, as soon as it is approved and we make the amendment Ms. Commissioner Byrd has pointed out, we will be sending out the formal document.
We need to vote on that, are we good?
It's pulled from the consent agenda, so it needs an independent vote.
So,
motion.
I move to accept
Second?
the changes.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Harris, seconded by Commissioner Swindle. Any more further discussion?
I'm sorry. I was paying attention, but I don't remember. So we will, in the month of July, we will not have a meeting right around the 4th of July or the 10th. And then we'll have the last meeting in July. We'll have that one.
Correct.
And then in the month of June, we'll have the first meeting. We won't have the last. Okay, I got it.
June will be in Cluess,
Okay.
and July in Lavelle.
Okay.
Any further discussion on that?
None.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Opposed? Carries. Okay. Awards and appearances. You have a presentation tonight. Ms. Malone, is she with us? There she is. Ms. Malone, would you come up and give us your presentation, please, ma'am? Your human trafficking presentation. Sheena Malone.
Is there a way to hook up the computer? No.
Can we get her into the,
Do we have an overhead?
Do you want to switch?
Yeah.
okay, we can do that. Mr. Mandel, Alan Mandel, the Goodwill's operational updates.
Alan Mandel, CEO of Good Wheels. Thank you, commissioners, for letting me appear tonight. Congratulations, Commissioner Wills, on your appointment.
Verdict's still out on that.
I was mayor of Fort Myers Beach once. I know how that goes. Anyway, I'm happy to be here tonight because there have been some concerns expressed in different groups and people about the financial condition of Good Wheels. I'm going to address that, tell you what has happened, give you an update on our very recent financing, and give you a report really on the increased trips and funding that Hendry Glades is going to have in 2018. To go back, there have been some financial issues for Good Wheels, and here are the things that actually caused them. From July of 2016 through June of 2017, which is the prior year's TD contract, for some reason, the ridership in Hendry and Glades County dropped precipitously. In fact, we didn't collect about $125,000 in revenue. We didn't provide the trips. Medicaid had shot up, which may be part of the reason. But not having those funds, our buses and our expenses were still operating. And we are still a coordinated system since we're the CTC. Very few people in Florida still operate it the way it was intended many, many years ago, that you would take everybody and schedule on buses as efficiently as possible. So normally we would have Medicaid patients and TD patients on the vehicle. Last year, there weren't anywhere near as many TD patients. So we suffered about $125,000 loss there. Second thing that really affected us was the Federal Transit Administration grants that we receive every year. Normally, those funds get transferred to FDOT, and then every CTC in Florida gets them. Last year, the money was in the bank by August. This year, we're not going to receive those grants until January 1st. So it's a huge difference. So there was $125,000 in drop in TD. The grant, one of the grants we could have used for operating funds was $175,000. So now we're at $300,000. And then came Hurricane Irma. We work with your EOC, and we have a claim into FEMA for about $10,000. But basically, our business interruption insurance claim right now, which is being reviewed, is about $250,000. You add all that up, we're 250 to 300. It's about a lot of money. We certainly didn't have the reserves. Here's where the good news starts, because I don't want you worried. For the last 2 years, out of the last 8, the last 2, Good Wheels has been profitable. Barely, but black is better than red. As a result of that, our 2 banks in Fort Myers, one of them has increased our line of credit by $200,000. The other bank is giving us 2 loans. One is a short-term loan till March of about $250,000. And in a sense, the collateral for that is the FDOT grant that we'll be able to get in January of $175,000, and that and other funds that we get from municipalities. For example, the county, Lee County, awarded us last week $147,000 to match the $175,000 grant from FDOT. Those 2 funds will pay back that loan, but allow us to pay our vendors immediately. The other loan is through the state of Florida, the Office of Economic Opportunity. they have Enterprise Florida. It's all one organization. They have what they call a non-bank bank, and they are making small business disaster loans. They, working with our bank, are going to guarantee 50% of a $200,000 loan, which will have a 3-year maturity. And there'll be plenty of time to pay that back because we have other grants that are far exceed that, plus the business interruption insurance would most likely cover that. So we are good. We have the funding now to continue Good Wheels the way it is. And to that end, I promised your county manager, this will make his night, we have a check for a little over $58,000, which we owe you, and we're happy to give it to you. Yeah, am I allowed to?
Oh, yeah. Okay. You always hand money over.
Okay, so that, and now we would very much like you to give us the grant you awarded us, because frankly, we've been holding some of that cash to pay for the local match on the transportation disadvantage that we're required to provide, which you provide, you and Glades provide. It's a 10% match. The state gives us 90% for TD. So we've got a way out of the problem. Hopefully we won't have a hurricane like this again, or the federal government won't be slow in making payments. But here's the good news going forward. We also received a grant. Normally we get what's called a 5311 operating grant, and it's usually in the area that gives us about $100,000, which allows us to match the state corridor grant for the Clubell route. This year it's jumped tremendously, because we've been asking for more. We're going to get $355,000. So if we take the $100,000 aside for Clubell, we've got enough for 8,000 more trips, which we've started to use already, making trips available to the public. In the past, basically the only trips we've provided in Hendry Glades were for medical appointments because our funding was limited. Now, with this funding, anybody can use it. They can go shopping with it. They can go to work using that funding. That's now available to everyone. So it's not just medical, TD, or Medicaid. Now there really is transportation open to the public. You can help us because we need more drivers. And that's one of the issues that we have right now, being able to hire people who can pass the background checks and things like that. All you need is a regular driver's license. But I'd be happy to hire somewhere between 5 and 10 drivers up here right now. So that would be great. So that funding is now available. We're working on grants right now for actually 2018, 2019, and I've put in a request for $1.2 million. Those are 50% grants, so we may get even more funding in the future to continue that program. With those funds, we've started a route from LaBelle to the iTech College. It only has 3 passengers right now, but we're doing it anyway because we want to initiate it, get it started, get the word out that it's going to exist. And I assume that over time, the ridership will increase. But I think it's important to be able to get people down to the schools where they can learn and basically get a good job when they get out. So we're doing that. To help us, last year, some of you probably know her, Senator Pasadomo and Representative Fitzenhagen introduced a bill, and it passed, and the governor approved it, didn't veto it. Good Wheels right now is working with FDOT. We have a $225,000 grant for routing scheduling software, which I believe, when you realize we're doing about 14,000 trips a month right now, and they're scheduling it by hand, it can't be accurate and it can't be efficient. This routing software is state-of-the-art, and I think it will improve our being on time and reducing costs as well. And I hope we have that certainly in place and operating by the first half of next year. So those are some of the things that we're doing. Unfortunately, we had to go through all this, but we've gotten through it. We have a way out. And I think actually the number of trips that we're going to be able to provide up here is going to be far greater than we've ever been able to do in the past. This year, our title as CTC is up for review by you and the LCB, which you sit on. I hope you approve us so we can continue doing what we're doing. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to address them.
Chair. Is 351 your total budget, or should we add all those together, or what?
Oh, our budget's much more than that.
Well, what is it?
It's basically, so our revenue for the year runs around $5.6 million. There's a lot of Medicaid payments that make up that amount, and transportation disadvantage payments. And that includes Lee, Hendry, and Glades, that number.
Okay, you got here total cost $750,000. You got your 50%, and then you got your loan. And do you know
The $700,000 loan, or $710,000 loan, is a 5311 loan, which is only for the rural, so only for Glades Hendry. The $175,000 is a 5310 operating, which is for Lee County.
Okay. And then out of that budget, not counting the bus drivers, how much of it's salary?
Our administrative costs are 4%.
4% of
Yeah,
the total budget?
total budget. Very low.
Then we got a check for 58. Do they have a balance, or is that paid up?
I have not run the aging report as of today. I will need to get that fact back for the board tomorrow morning if I might.
Based on our records, that was every invoice we've had from you.
Right. I'm not aware if the December invoices have been posted yet. That's why I would need to get with you in the morning.
And then how often are they required to pay?
It's a monthly invoice,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, so you understand if you don't pay by the month, you don't get any gas?
We know that.
Okay.
We appreciate what you've done to date that allowed us to continue to operate.
Further questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr.
Mr. Mandel, you touched briefly on transportation disadvantage, and I know that also plays into Medicaid and some other issues. Can you touch on that just a little bit, and especially how that reflects, especially like when we have storms? For 2 years in a row, last year and this year when we were doing storm preparations, we needed to move folks that were disabled, that typically moved by Goodwills, and we were several days out from the storm yet. And we said, no problem, we'll get Goodwills to come by. And we were told, our Goodwills people, they've shut down and evacuated, and totally left our folks.
No,
We were basically going and getting them in our own vehicles and things like that.
Well, this year, we were contacted by the EOC, and our people attended their meetings, and they asked us to move 25 people, special needs, and we did that. Whatever they asked us to do this year, we did.
Last year?
Not the prior year. This Hurricane Irma, we did. And one of the reasons, I mean, none of us knew the prior year that we even had an agreement with you, if you want to be honest with you. It was the first time I had heard about it.
And you may have touched on some of the other serious concerns that I have about your organization. You sort of touched them. Not accurate and efficient were the words that I heard you say. And I've been getting blistered.
I know.
Blistered by folks that are being forgotten, being rude, rudely treated. And I afforded them some to you, and I don't know, I mean, that's not the way we want to treat our Hendry County folks, our residents, and that's not the business we want to project. I need you to make me feel comfortable that that's going to come to an end and you're going to do better.
Well, we will. Go ahead.
Allow me to speak. That did come up at the meeting, and we did touch on it. And so the following meeting, they had a training to teach them how to deal with the public, because I had the same thing you had. So what they did was had a training to teach his workers on how to answer the phone and how to properly speak to the people that's calling in, because they were being rude. The other thing, I was really hard on him because they wasn't picking up the people. And I told him, I said, you make us look bad because we assign people to the run, but there's nobody there to pick them up. So these things was touched. I did bring it up, and we did the follow-up on it. So, some of these things have been corrected, but these things was taking place, and I did address it.
Was it since last Friday?
No, not since last
No.
Well,
Friday.
it's still going on then.
Well, and some of it will. I mean, I know there's one woman who's calling me. I don't want to mention names because of HIPAA violations, but I gave everybody at the LCB my cell phone number so that if someone's got a problem, they can call me. I really think the amount of trips that we're trying or being asked to do far exceeds what people can schedule by hand. And that's why this equipment that we've been given a grant for should help tremendously. I mean, the equipment we have right now is over 12 years old, and it doesn't work.
Well, you know, even with the equipment, that wasn't the problem. The problem was we promised things to people, and we didn't keep the promise.
Yeah.
And it was because you didn't have drivers. But like I said in the meeting, you don't let them know you coming and pick them up, and you know you don't have the drivers. You don't put it in place, and you don't have the people to support.
No, I know what you're referring to. We had, unfortunately, we still have 2 drivers who are on medical leave up here, and we haven't been able to hire anybody. And that's why I said one of the things I would appreciate is if you all, through any organizations you have, can refer people to us. We'd love to hire them. We really do. Vehicles are not the issue. We have vehicles. We don't have drivers.
Yes, sir. So I'll start positive first, I guess. You said you would be happy to hire 5 to 10 drivers right now with a regular driver's license. So if you just have your regular operator?
That's all. You do not have to be CDL. Only Clue Belt requires that, but for the people who go to take people to the doctor's office or to employment, it's just a regular driver's license. But they have to be able to pass all the background checks.
Is that a level 2 or what?
Yeah, it goes all the way to Department of Children's and Family up in Tallahassee.
Okay. And what's the rate of pay for that?
Right now, we're paying $10.50 an hour plus health plus retirement package. And it's getting difficult to do that because since I've been there now for 3 years, Medicaid has reduced their payments to us twice. It's not easy.
Okay. You said 13 to 14,000 trips a month.
Yeah.
Is
That's
that
total system.
That's total system. It just doesn't add up. I don't see how, man, I mean, it just doesn't seem like that big of a number to me, and maybe I'm minimizing it too much, but with right now, Hendry County pays a little less than $1 a year out of our pocket from every constituent for your services is what we contribute to the system. We contribute about $45,000 a year out of ours. There's 40,000 residents. Lee County, you said, was that just one match that they gave, $147,000?
Lee County gave us the match this year was $175,000. Then there's another $39,000 as a match towards vehicles. You get your vehicles 100% paid here because it's a rural county. So I've been using Shirley Conroy grants or a Federal Transit Administration grant 5339 where it's 100% paid. Whereas in Lee County, because it's urban, it has to be it's an 80-10-10. The federal government pays 80%, the state pays 10%, and then local sources are 10%.
Well, I would love to know of the 13 to 14,000 trips a month, and I believe you have a report that could show this to us. And I don't think y'all want this at a regular board meeting, so maybe it's just something we could schedule up with our county administrator, or you could just give it to us individually. But of the 13 to 14,000 trips a month, how many of those are out of Hendry County? How many of them are Hendry Glades, even if you want to just keep it that simple? And then you mentioned that this year you're going to be able to add the ability to take somebody to the store or add the ability to take someone to an educational facility, which you couldn't do previously.
Correct.
That was because of a lack of a funding source?
Yes. Yes. In other words, the only funding that we have prior to this year in Hendry Glades would either be transportation disadvantaged, which is strictly for medical, well, can be for anything, but we basically used it all up for just medical. Okay? That's state funding. Then there's Medicaid, and they pay us per person we take. And then there's the Clewiston to Belglade run, which is a state corridor grant matched by a 5311 grant. It's 50-50. This year, just now, instead of getting about $100,000, we're getting, that $710,000 grant, you get 50% of it, so it's $355,000. Take 100 of that for the Clue Bell, because we always need that to match the state grant. That leaves the $255,000 roughly as new money.
So you're telling me that bus that runs from Clewiston to Belglade, I think it goes into Moorhaven.
No, it doesn't. It's Clewiston to Belglade, back and forth. I think it's about 8 times during the day.
That's $100K to run a year. It renders zero revenue. You don't charge a person $1.
There's $1 on it.
There is
a dollar. Yeah.
There is $1.
Yeah.
And what's the volume on that thing?
I think you get sometime, depending on the month, it can vary anywhere from 60 to 100 people.
I don't know if y'all have ever seen it. I'm going to tell you my biggest frustration, Mr. Mandel. I've never in my life, in the 8 years that I've been serving as a commissioner, seen more than 2 people on one of your buses, even during the storm time. I don't know if that's a coordination issue. I don't know if it's a financial issue. I don't know what the logistics are. But I don't see how any operation can exist with 1 human and a person driving, or maybe 2 people and a person driving. And I don't pretend to know the community transportation coordinator ins and outs, or the transportation disadvantage ins and outs. But I do share my colleagues' concerns with us getting hammered for what the level of service is. And you and I both know, I mean, listen, you can 5311, 5310, 5369 me to death. I have no clue what any of those acronyms or codes are associated with.
Grants.
Yes, sir. And even looking at this and trying to keep up with the different numbers that we have there, it's a bit confusing. So I would just love to see a report that kind of drills in on what you think is going to happen with this program, how we can make it to where what Commissioner Swindle is doing with his adult education classes, what we're doing down in iTech, with what I hope this board is going to engage in the upcoming months, with what we were going to do with the Hendry Glades Technical Training Center, the Glades Technical Training Center, that I hope that we're going to be able to hyphenate it and add Hendry to it. I hope that we can find a way to skin that cat so that we can put butts in seats and transport them to and from. I will tell you, if it's, like listening to iTech and only 3 people, I'm scared to ask how much that costs a year.
Well, that would cost a lot, but, we announced the program. Initially, we thought there were going to be far more people. We were told there were going to be more. It didn't work out that way.
How long has it been running with 3 people on it? And is that
just,
daily?
Just started in August. I mean, the first semester. And my feeling was, if we didn't start, then it'll never get started.
Yeah.
And this way, so there were 3 people. If the word gets out that this is there as a resource for people, maybe next time there'll be 10 or 15 people.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. At some point, you have to cut and not do something because it's not economical.
And or change the way you're doing something that clearly with 2 humans on a big bus, I don't think that's
part of that is because we're required to take people at specific times. And it depends how many people who live near each other can be picked up about the same time in order to get them somewhere else at a specific time. That's the tough part.
Yes, sir. And I understand it's government at its finest. But government at its finest is the worst example of efficiency I've ever seen in my. I mean, I look at what the Corps of Engineers does sometimes, some of their specifications, and I don't understand how we exist as a country.
I know.
And so I would love to just drill in on this. I would love for you to sit down, help maybe educate us a little bit on what it is.
Well,
we clearly need to change something.
Well.
And I'm glad you brought us a check tonight. I hope that the checks will flow more frequently.
Oh, they will.
I just I struggle with seeing the lack of volume on a bus and getting beat up time and time again over a system, and not having an answer for people that seem legitimate.
Well, and I apologize that I know you've had people call me. I've seen your name on emails too. That's what we have to change. We've changed staff. I mean, one of the things besides just the course on how to be polite to people, we have new people in place. I think that's why, with a nicer attitude, the number of trips are increasing up here. I mean, we get, for the transportation disadvantage, which is the state funding, we get $39,000 a month from the state. We're using that up totally right now. We are providing trips to people. And
You're getting $39,000 a month to serve Hendry, Glades, and Lee, or just Hendry
no,
and
just
Glades?
Hendry and Glades.
And you're using up $39,000 a month, every
Yes.
month, like clockwork?
Yes.
And you don't think that that's an exorbitant number? I mean, what's the volume? Am I losing?
Well,
it?
I'll get you the number of people that we're transporting. But remember, part of the expense involved in that is that many of the people who we take to a medical appointment are going from wherever they live in LaBelle or Clewiston to maybe Palm Beach, Lee County, or Sarasota. And that's why there aren't that many on a bus sometimes. But if Medicaid says, that's where we want you to take them, that's what we do. And we get them to their appointments.
Is it a violation or illegal or inappropriate to ask, could we schedule 4 of those appointments in the same day?
Well, what we've done...
if we're taking them to the same facility, I don't know if that technology exists, and maybe it will in this new program.
Well, I'll tell you what we did. We just made a decision to try to be efficient. We said we're going to go to West Palm Beach 2 days a week, let's say, and Sarasota 3 days a week. And now please schedule your appointments accordingly so that at least we could get more people on the bus. And sometimes we have to go all the way down to Miami or up to Tampa. It all depends where the doctor says they want that person to go for treatment.
That's well over $500,000 a year at $39,000 a month, you know.
You take them on a bus?
Yeah, or a van. If it's one person, we have these smaller vans that we can use. But if it's multiple people, we'll use a bus.
You do have a smaller.
Yeah, I've started buying some of those. It's not easy trying to get people, who live in very different areas, picked up and at a time that is designated, and get them where they have to be at a time that's designated. And that's where the software will come in, because right now. Before I got to Goodwheels in 2014, the state controlled Medicaid. Basically, anyone who was on Medicaid, for example, could have called us and said, we need a ride. Now the state has changed it, and a person on Medicaid must belong to an HMO. The HMO decides they should go to a doctor. The HMO now contracts with another for-profit organization that is a Medicaid broker. And they have contracts with different transportation companies. And so that's why we're getting less money for doing the same amount of Medicaid work, because there's somebody in the middle now. But basically, we have to now have equipment to work with 6 different software systems for getting the appointments and for billing. It's become extremely complicated. But that's what the system is, and we're working with it.
Just to get back to most of the colleagues' comments up here, I agree with 100%. We need to get more efficient.
Yes.
Hopefully, the program you have coming into place is going to be more efficient. As it's a situation where maybe we can, get with the health providers that's try to schedule these things more efficiently. As far as the human side of it, that doesn't take software. It just makes people understand that you're courteous. You're there to provide a service. It doesn't matter how bad your morning was. You're there to provide a service. So. The software side of it sounds amazing. We need to really look into that, as Commissioner Turner said. Maybe you can get us a spreadsheet on that, show us exactly what's going on here. I'm sure the software you have now should be able to spit one of them things out pretty quick.
Well, we know how many trips we're providing, things like that.
Do you have a count on not only the trips? I mean, if you're driving back and forth 8 times, how many of those trips have bodies on the bus? How many of those are just an empty trip?
There won't be there's no empty trips.
There's no empty trips.
No. The only time there's an empty trip, it's called a no-show. So Medicaid will tell us to go pick somebody up, and we'll go to their house, and they've decided they don't want to go. And we have to eat the cost.
Those are the things we need to look at with the software and other things coming into play. So does anyone have any other questions or comments? All right, Mr. Mandel, thank you very much.
Well, thank you all.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Ms. Malone, are you all set and ready? Very good.
Good evening. My name is Gina Malone. I'm with Abuse Counseling and Treatment, otherwise known as ACT. I am their human trafficking community educator. So I first want to start off by explaining what the Southwest Florida Regional Human Trafficking Coalition is. Our main mission is to collaborate with law enforcement and other community partners for the purpose of bringing down perpetrators and for rescuing survivors and reacclimating them with society. Our other main aim is to further public policy and fix cracks that currently exist. This is the mission of the coalition. So human trafficking and why it's important, especially for Southwest Florida. In the world, human trafficking is the second leading crime. The first is drug trafficking. Human trafficking is expected within the next 5 years to take over drug trafficking as the leading crime in the world. And that's because, unlike drugs, you can use and abuse a body until it either dies, is rescued, or is arrested. And Florida ranks third in the country for human trafficking because we have both domestic servitude, labor trafficking, and sex trade in the state. Our top venues in the state of Florida are online ads, hotel, motel-based, and commercial fronts such as massage parlors and restaurants. The U.S. Department of Labor has identified 136 goods from 74 countries that were from forced labor and child labor. These victims are said to be paid about $6,000 a year for their work, and some don't even get paid. For labor traffickers, this is including the recruiters, the contractors, employers, and others, use violence, threats, and lies and debt bondage to control their victims. In the U.S., it is estimated to be a $226 billion industry. Labor traffickers often make false promises of high-paying jobs to coerce their victims into taking jobs, if we're talking about overseas to here or from here in the U.S. to overseas jobs. For human trafficking to take place, there are three things that are necessary. It's an action, a means, and a purpose. The action is the recruiting of a person, the harboring, moving, or obtaining of a person. The means is through force, fraud, or coercion, and the purpose is for domestic servitude, debt bondage, slavery, or sexual exploitation. Force generally is with violence toward life. Fraud, it's most common with minors. It's where you have a boyfriending-in situation where a young minor, generally between the age of 12 to 14, which is the average for Florida and nationally, is convinced by an older, more manipulative, more schooled person into controlling a minor, into thinking that they're their boyfriend, and then they convince them to work for them. And coercion, that would be coercion. Fraud is, we had a victim who worked in Italy, and she was told that she would have a job here in the States as a teacher. When she got here, they held her passport and they held all of her paperwork, and she was forced into sex trafficking for 6 years before she was rescued. So the key statistics, it is estimated between 200,000 and 300,000 children are sexually trafficked every year in the United States. And unlike what is depicted in the media, 83% of identified sex trafficked victims in the United States are U.S. citizens born and raised. 11 to 13 is the average entry age for boys, and 12 to 14 is the average entry age for girls. And the average lifespan for these victims is 7 years. That's because they are either found dead from a violent attack, prolonged abuse, HIV or another STD, malnutrition, or overdose or suicide. This is the average income for one sex trafficker who has 3 girls or 3 boys, It's 30 rapes a day for $35, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. It equals $1,146,600. And there are nicer, if you want to call them nicer, human traffickers where they're only forced to work 6 days a week, and on the 7th day, their option is to recruit other victims. And in 2014, Nike, Google, and Starbucks combined equaled what human trafficking brought in the U.S. I wanted to show this picture. It's 3 girls that span 12 months of them in human trafficking. The girl on the left and the top right is the girl you see On the right, same with the middle to the right and the bottom left to the bottom right. The warning signs, sudden withdrawal from friends or classmates, a drop in grades, falling asleep in class, unexplained absences, a sudden shift in dress, a new older boyfriend, a growing occurrence of excessive texting to step out of class, acquiring or expensive items such as cell phones, designer clothes, discussion about going to dance clubs or traveling to other cities with friends, suspicious tattoos, usually used for branding.
What was the bottom thing? The bottom?
This is more of a warning. If you think that someone is being trafficked, not to interfere directly. We have national hotlines, and we also ask for you to contact the police first, because it's very dangerous if you were to go and tell a victim. More likely they would be scared and probably tell their trafficker, who would most likely lash out at them. Other common signs are very protective or fearful of their trafficker, who usually travels with them where they go, usually with controlling individual who speaks for them, fearful of telling others about their situation, unaware of their location, date, or time, limited freedom of movement. They tend to be very fearful of police or authorities, limited access to medical care. At ACT, we provide safety, housing, food, clothing, legal assistance, victim advocacy, housing, medical care, mental health services, transportation, education, job training, and reunification. All of the services we offer to our victims, whether it's because of domestic violence, sexual violence, or human trafficking, is offered for free. This is the contact information. I'm here tonight to ask for your assistance to get into schools. I want to be able to not only train teachers and administrative staff, but I also want to be able to give presentations for students. I think it's appalling that they're recruiting kids. I think it's appalling that the average age for boys is 11 to 13, and I think it's appalling that the average age for a girl is 12 to 14. If you noticed all the signs, a lot of them are things to look out for that teachers or administrative staff could actually see themselves in behavior of students. And so I'm here tonight to ask for your assistance in being able to get into schools and to provide this training.
Have you talked to the school board?
I have tried. I have not received any contact back.
Well, we can contact them.
I'll be happy to work with you, Ms. Malone.
I think we should go a step further. I think that, I mean, first off, I mean, do y'all, Mr. Chair, do you think this exists in Hendry County?
This exists everywhere. Most people don't want to admit it, but it's, yes, Hendry County, Glades County, it's everywhere.
And until you sat, I'd never heard of it until a handful of years back. I sat through a training on it. Until you sit and look at the intricate ways of how they operate, it's absolutely happening in Hendry County and under our noses, because we are prime territory with some of our rural isolated areas. And number one, I've seen some great legislation coming that hopefully this will be mandated that the schools will have to teach this starting in 2018 school year. I totally agree, Ms. Malone. I don't think that we should wait until then. We should do everything we can to get you in front of those target-rich students so that they are, and their peers and their parents and the administrators, so they know. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there are some steps that will have to be taken to make that happen, but nonetheless, I don't see us not being able to do that. And I know that I've even had this conversation with Mr. Chapman, and he's gone so far as I don't really think you should limit it to schools, because it's happening in schools, but also it's happening in the county around us, and sometimes code enforcement, if they know the things to look for, or other folks that are county staffs, when they get little telltale signs of what's going on, you know, that also can be a great asset as well. And so I don't think schools are awesome, and I think absolutely, but I think that we also need to expand on conversation Mr. Chapman was pushing, I don't know, a year or so ago, that was a phenomenal idea. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Those numbers you got, are they pulled up county by county?
They're not pulled up county by county, but those were pulled from the state, the numbers that I pulled up. And then the numbers for with the U.S., where we're 83% of identified victims, was from the federal department. Trying to think.
I was just wondering how they got.
Sorry?
I was wondering how they got the numbers if they didn't have it county by county.
It's all nationally reported through the FBI.
Okay,
I can send you the report where it was pulled.
okay.
Well, Ms. Malone, I think it would also be fair to say it's the definition of a moving target. I mean, it's a living, breathing animal that grows and shrinks daily, if not hourly, and in a county such as ours that has a major corridor north and south and east and west. I mean, I think we see this a lot more. I think it's a lot more prevalent than what we realize. I'm refreshed and very happy to hear y'all say what you've said. I do echo your sentiments, Mr. Swindle. I think that Charles should be mandating some sort of a training. I think this should be high up on the radar of code enforcement. This is a huge reason why I am anti the blight concept and us just kind of turning a blind eye to where we know there is a situation of high volumes or high number of residents living in one dwelling that's completely out of compliance, because you're getting into situations like this, and it just becomes the norm, and then right, wrong, and different, however you view it, whatever your DNA is composed of, it's all irrelevant. That stuff, that lifestyle has a tendency to creep out and invade every orifice of your body, and it's disgusting.
This might enforce code enforcement, if this was in place, because they know there's a problem, but we always get our hand cut off because we can only go so far.
Yeah.
So this might, strengthen us just a little bit,
And to speak to high occupancy, we've been doing trainings recently with the fire departments, and specifically with Fort Myers Shores. They've already flagged a couple addresses based off of trainings we've done with them, and they've identified several houses that they believe are human trafficking hotspots.
And Ms. Malone, to that point, I mean, just be cognizant of you're in a completely different region where resources are so much more limited in Hendry and Glades County.
Right.
While our volunteer firemen may be able to have that conversation with you, I think that it would be a much more natural conversation to have with our code enforcement professionals and say, where do we see these hot spots? Where do we see this kind of energy coming in and out of a neighborhood, and how do we make that report?
And I'm more than willing to do any of those meetings or any of those presentations or trainings. My job specifically, why I was hired, is because ACT is prioritizing human trafficking, because I don't know if you guys are aware, but in 2015, the largest sex trafficking ring in the state of Florida was taken down, and it was in Southwest Florida.
It was in Immokalee, wasn't it?
It ran from Immokalee, LaBelle, to Tampa, to Bonita Springs, and to Estero, Fort Myers as well.
Yeah, and I just think, I mean, I don't know. It just, you see things. You see things, and it makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, and it's just not natural. And I think that this is the type of energy that, attracts itself, and we've got to engage in it. So I don't know how. I mean, I don't know what we can do to force the issue. I would like to respectfully request that our county administrator share this information with our superintendent of schools and with and CC the entire school board, and ask, make a request on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners to make some sort of a presentation, even if it's an in-service that happens to the teachers, whatever. But I think that we need to press this issue. We've been asked by a professional, and we need to press this issue a little bit more than just the mundane, well, you need to reach out to the school board. There's really nothing that we can do.
And then on the other side of that, the school board has been open. They've been receptive to quite a bit, actually. We've had students, we've lost quite a few students recently, in recent years, to different things, and they've allowed the parents who have actually come together, they've band together, they go in the schools, they do the training, what to look for when the child's alone, when the child's despondent, when the child seems to be alone or is always by herself. And the biggest keys are the things most people don't look at is most young girls in that situation, they quit taking care of themselves. Their hair's a mess, their clothes are a mess. Young boys, you'll see the same thing, their clothes are just tattered. And the key to this is we need to address it and move on it now. We don't need to have this discussion tonight and then wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks. This is something I believe that we need to stop talking about so many times. This is something that you can't turn a blind eye to. You can't ask, is it all here? Yes, it is. I believe Mr. Nelson could confirm that in the past couple of weeks we've had quite a bit of people in the areas of Port LaBelle and other areas that are driving by in vehicles slowly. There's been so many complaints and speak out on what's happening in LaBelle about vehicles trying to pick up children in areas. Yes, it's happening here. So we need to address this. And Mr. Chapman, I believe we need to move forward right away. I agree with what you're saying. I really appreciate you taking the time and bringing this to our attention. This is something that's very relevant. Most people like to say it's not, but it is. I work with our youth group. I go over and listen to our kids talk in youth group. Yeah, it's real. And we've been losing children somewhere. Between elementary school and high school, there's a gap, and we're losing our children, and we've got to figure out what it's going to take to get our children back. So I appreciate your time very much.
Not to belabor the point anymore, but I think, your comments are so well received, it's so spot on, and I think that, when you look at, this is one of the situations where I'm so happy to hear everybody saying, oh, well, that's not happening here. You know what I mean? And that's what I've heard. I mean, I've heard that from a handful of people that I've talked to, and it's just, that happens over there, not here. That happens in Immokalee. That don't happen in Clewiston. Oh, no. It's in the Point. It's on it. I'm not going to say it's on the north side of 27, but I can guarantee it's on the south side of 27. And I guarantee it's in our outlying communities as well. And so I'm happy. I'm very pleasantly surprised to hear that we're all on the same page on that. So,
Anyone else, any further comments?
no,
Ms. Malone, thank you very much for your presentation. Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
I believe I didn't want to take a picture of Alan Mandel in his check.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
You as well.
We have one other item under that. Mrs. Ern, are you present? Would you like to come forward, please, ma'am? Workforce Invitation Opportunity Act.
Yes, I'm Mary Ann Zern with the Southwest Florida Workforce Development Board, and we also do business as Career Source Southwest Florida in our centers around the 5-county area. The Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act requires now that we have a memorandum of understanding with all of the required partners that assist with the one-stop operation, employment and training, career services, employer services, and some of the training, mostly referral to training. But there are a lot of partners that we work with. So this is an effort to put all of the partners on one memorandum of understanding. It does also, among the other signatures that are required, it requires a signature of the chief elected official, which for our workforce development region is Hendry County for the 5-county area. Now, the chair was Michael Swindle, who is now Mitchell Wills.
So your documentation has been prepared for Commissioner Swindle.
Of course it was.
I make a motion to approve said documentation and replace it with Commissioner Wills, unless we can just have Commissioner Swindle sign it for time certain. Mr. Lapp.
Stack of them here, so.
This whole document is really their document. It's not a BOCC document. So whether it's, I don't really know.
I'm fine with it
Ms.
either
Zern,
way.
are you an attorney?
I am not.
You're the only attorney in the room, Mark, so we're putting it on you.
If it's being approved now, then he's not the chairman now. Mr. Wills is the chairman now, so.
Well, then just mark through it.
We should have done that first.
See?
Ms. Zern, I bet if you're good with it, we're good with it.
Okay. We can certainly do that.
Y'all good
And
with
I
it?
can either prepare the document again for signature, or we can do a strike through, either way you prefer.
Strike through that bad
We'll
boy.
just strike through it and let him sign
That's
it.
fine. That's fine.
She means now, by the way.
Well, we can do it.
She wants to go home,
Yeah,
is what
she's
she's
ready to
saying,
go.
Commissioner Wills. I have a motion to approve the amendment or the request and make it with a strike all.
Motion made by Commissioner Turner, seconded by Ms. Byrd. Any further discussion?
What do you have to do, Ms. Zern, to create a soft skills training program? Could you work with our adult school innovator over there? Let me tell you what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Let me break it down in lay's terms.
All right?
I struggle with having people that come through my office and just hiring them at $9 or $10 an hour to simply dress the part and answer the phone in a manner that's clear and concise and, we can understand it. And it runs demographics culturally. It runs the demographics socioeconomic status. There is no magic number there. I don't know what the formula is, but we seem to miss that. But then when I talk to my colleagues in Southwest Florida, they say the same thing. Southeast Florida, they say the same thing. There's just a vacuum of soft skills. I like to call it middle-class virtues. But do y'all have any programs like that exist? And if not, why don't we create one and be a pilot for the state? I think it'll take off.
With most of our training funding, it is designed specifically for occupational training, so it needs to link to a specific occupation, whether
I
it's
can guarantee
carpentry or,
you.
oh, no, I understand what you mean.
Okay.
We held a healthcare initiative forum for quite some time, and one of the things that came out very prominently was the lack of soft skills, and there's different terms they use for it, but soft skills, the inability to make eye contact, to communicate with people of different ages and different cultures was one of the things that came out, especially in hospital and healthcare settings. And the educators are stymied to a certain degree because their curriculum for programs, whether it's at secondary or post-secondary levels, says they will have X number of hours within that educational segment, and they can't just add on things or pull things out so they can add in hours on soft skills training. So unless the soft skills is put into each program and combined that way, it's real difficult for them to add soft skills training. Employers prefer it be done before the person gets to them. One of the healthcare providers said with Lee Health, which is a very large healthcare system, they've added on some things of their own, which a lot of small businesses can't afford to do.
That's exactly right, Ms. Earn. I have 5 people in my office, and when they come in to help with the submittal process, and one of my managers says, "Hey, we need you to rotate to the phone, or we need to rotate," I don't want you to teach them how to do Excel. That would be wonderful if you can,
Yeah.
but we're just talking about that 101, basis. And so what you're telling me is, really nicely, you're saying no. Do you design any curriculum yourself? Please don't take offense to that.
No, not at all.
So you're just the executive director that runs the
I go by what
joint.
Department of Education
Okay.
says. If that's a 600-hour program,
Well, then
that's
I
what I'm
want
going by.
to attack this legislatively, and then I would like for you to be thinking what you think that program would look like, because obviously you have a number of programs that are extremely successful under your umbrella, and then what it would talk like from our standpoint, and then what it would look like from a financial perspective.
That was one of the issues that we talked about, specifically in the healthcare industry, and it's certainly not just the healthcare
But
industry.
you
We know that.
hit the nail on the head
is
when you
to-
said that small business owner, and that's exactly where I'm at. 26 people, A to Z, and I can think of a ton of companies that are 50 employees or less, okay? But they do not have the orientation or the HR program that gets into, this is our manual on, hello, how are you doing, Quality Electric, or good morning, Quality Electric, and then so on and so forth. But I hear from our county administrator that he struggles with the same thing.
They actually asked if we could do workshops in the centers, which we can do, with the biggest problem there being soft skills are generally not something you learn overnight or you're going to get in a 2-hour block. It's something you learn from the time you're very young on how to interact with people, how to talk with people, how to answer the phone, how to communicate.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of the communication.
But in spite of, we
and
still
they're
have to
calling
do
them fundamental skills frequently in education now. And we talked about possibly putting something through at the state level with Department of Education, all of the workforce, 24 workforce boards, saying this is what is needed in education. But it's real difficult to approach that when things are so blocked
Regimented
in for
already.
hours.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna engage this.
Yeah. If
I
there
got
are
too many
workshops
things
that
on
we
the
could do in our
legislative.
centers, we would do that. We do things like interviewing skills, resume writing, how to keep a job once you get a job. Most of those directed at the individual finding employment and keeping employment.
More comments? We
No,
got a
sir. Thank you,
motion and a
Chair.
second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Have your
Thank you,
form
Ms.
out
Earn.
there. Thank you very much.
Ms. Earn?
Ms. Zorn?
We have your paper.
Next item is public hearings.
Before y'all want to let Commissioner Turner know that's just math that some people are lacking of, and they used to teach it in school. They used to teach that skill. I remember Miss Dixon doing that at the middle school level, but they don't do that anymore.
Well, it's just basic things too, Ms.
Yeah.
Bird, like how you're to present yourself when you're going in for that job application or something like that, just simple things.
Ms. Emlich.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. This agenda item is a request to amend the Hendry County Code of Ordinances regarding some of our code enforcement procedures, in particular for mowing violations. One of the changes is proposed to go from 30 days to 15 days for the property owner to respond to a letter of investigation.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve option number 1, if that's what Ms. Emlich is requesting.
Second.
Yes, sir.
We got a motion,
Second.
Commissioner Turner. Second from Commissioner Harris. This is a public meeting. Does anyone of the public wish to address this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes. Thank you. Second up on that is the uniform election we talked about. Hang on one second. Mr. Lapp.
Chairman, members of the board, this was discussed last month by Mr. Parker, looking to expand the properties that are subject to the mosquito control MSBU assessment, and this is a step in the process to do that.
I make a motion to approve the attached resolution and conduct the public hearing, if that's what the attorney recommends.
Second.
We got a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Turner, seconded by Commissioner Harris. This is also a meeting of the public. Would anyone like to address this? Seeing none, any further comments from the board?
Just to be clear, Attorney Lappa, this, and the way I read it is basically everyone in county is going to pay outside of the municipalities?
No, this is a step that would allow you in a future meeting, which is at the budget time in September, to expand the properties that are subject up to the full unincorporated county, which isn't going to happen because there's a lot of agricultural properties that don't need to be sprayed.
Dwellings, not vacant land, not ag land, not.
The intent was to add certain areas, maybe in Port LaBelle. There was discussion one time prior about Harlem. There was other areas where they're developing that we can't add them for mosquito control because they weren't included in that prior resolution for uniform collection of methods.
You can't add them until you have a public hearing anyway, could you?
Public hearing.
And you're not uniformly going to just add everyone in every dwelling in Hendry?
No,
that's not
just
happening.
where
That's
it
not
makes
what we're talking
sense.
about. Okay.
Most of the time they complain, and then
Yeah.
get added.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Moving on to correspondence. Mr. Parker. Back to you.
Yep.
Any questions on that?
None.
I have one further comment on one of my items. That's on the correspondence FYI, the litigation update one, unless you had anything else you wanted to address before I got to that.
Yeah, I didn't see that one on here.
It's number D, or letter D.
Litigation update?
Yes. Have a further update on one of the items I wanted to provide. The last item in the list, I'm not sure how to say that name, the Lane is versus Verona. It's it's a quiet title lawsuit that we were brought into because we had a code enforcement lien, and I said we were contesting it. Since I wrote this, the attorney on the other side, questioned whether the code enforcement processes were all followed for it. It's a mowing case, $300 for mowing, and the processes were not followed properly. So I'm just disclosing that to you, that we need to abandon our assertion of that lien and just drop it. And so I'm informing you, we're going to no longer. You because it's somewhat different from what I wrote.
Okay. So that takes us to Mr. Parker.
So essentially, we didn't follow our own policy, Mark?
Yes, the letter, from mowing violations, our code has a very specific notice letter. In fact, it's earlier here on your agenda, when you approve the mowing changes, the form of the letter, the actual wording is like right there, and that was not done. It was a standard code enforcement letter which said this is going to go to county court, said the matter would go to county court, which it didn't. Instead of doing the mowing, it was just the wrong letter, and they didn't do the process right.
What year was that?
The 2011 case that with the lien recorded in 2012.
Further discussion on that, guys?
No, sir.
Ladies and
Thank you.
gentlemen? Back to Shane again. Do I have a different agenda here? I'm seeing correspondence, FY Engineering Department updates.
It's provided for reference only at the
Good.
discretion of the board. If you'd like to pull anything to discuss or ask questions, you can do that.
Staff report.
Otherwise, it's just for review.
Moving to staff reports, Mr. Chapman.
The first item that is going to be presented to you is the U.S. Department of Justice COPS hiring grant to be presented by Ms. Janet Papanaugh, Grants Coordinator.
Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation that we approve option number 1, Ms. Papanoff.
Second that
Thank
motion.
you.
We have a motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Swindle. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Ms. Papanoff.
Thank you very much.
You did good.
I believe that got the deputies they needed. Is that correct? From what I read, that should have, very good. Ms. Emmerich.
Yes. Commissioners, this is a request for the board to ratify a fee for the Rising Star Child Care amendment to a PUD. The staff is asking that the board approve the $500 fee that was paid instead of the required $1,000 fee that is required for a PUD amendment.
Motion to approve
Second.
at the $500 mark.
Yes, sir.
Motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Harris. Any further discussion?
If I might, Mr. Chair, is that along with the $500 acceptance, is that we are creating this in the fee schedule because it had not been contemplated before? Simply, it was an error on the applicant's part. We're trying to make this right. This young lady needs to get up and running. So thank you in advance before you carry the motion.
I understand. Any further comments on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Courthouse expansion.
Chairman, for the record, Shane Parker, Henry County Public Works Director. I have negotiated a guaranteed maximum price with Christel for some courthouse repairs that were caused by Hurricane Irma and one by a third party.
Good with it? You like the number? Give us the
I like
nuts
the
and
number.
bolts.
You want the nuts and bolts on it? Remove and replace 2 exhaust fans. The outer liner of the roof was ripped in a few spots. There was a basket that was tore off. Final siding was busted. Gutter was damaged.
Are they remobilizing to us?
They're coming back to us.
But they're familiar? You feel good about it?
I feel good about
Alan feels good about it?
it. Who?
Alan
yes.
Bowen? He's
Yes.
the director of the department.
Of facilities maintenance.
Repairs. Director of repairs.
I moved to
He's the director of Fix Everything.
Move to accept.
What was that number?
It was $28,524.
Second, Commissioner Harris's motion.
Got it.
Got a motion from Commissioner Harris, second from Commissioner Turner. Any further discussion?
And this could be reimbursable.
It should be covered by insurance. If not, there's mine disaster relief. That's it.
It's got to be done.
It's got to be
Gotta
done.
be done. If we don't get it done, there's a lady who's gonna yell
I
at
know what
us.
you're talking about.
Any further
Hey, Miss
discussion?
Butler, how are you?
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item I have for you, Chairman, is Port LaBelle Utility System purchase of radio read meters. Our radio meters are aged out.
Mr. Chair, so y'all feel that this is the vendor that you wanted to go with, but the price is not exorbitant, and this is a good move. This is an efficiency that's not going to be dead 730 days from now.
Right, I feel it's a good move. Our whole system is based on master meter, our antennas, the software. And this is just updating the technology on these meters. And I feel it's a good move.
Move
And we've been
to
So
replacing them
1,500
earlier.
times 142,
We've been,
Move to accept.
and the money's in the account.
we're only doing 560 other meters. We have replaced some earlier
Okay.
as we were changing them out.
Okay.
How much warranties on them?
That I don't know. I don't know that off the top
I
of
know
my
the
head.
other ones I see it was 10-year warranty, so.
They save a bunch of money, I know.
Now we got a motion by Commissioner Harris. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Turner. Any further discussion?
I just make sure he know how much warranty he have on them prior to buying them.
I can email you and let you know the warranty. I know we replaced some already with the digital reader, so they're already in place.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Flat.
Yes, first item is further report to you on the election of commissioners. We talked about this at the October 10th meeting. You asked me to come back in December with some more detail about the situation statewide, and so I've given you various pieces of information about how many other counties are in the same situation as us, and if anyone's gone through this before or attempted to go through it before. And so you can see there were 14 counties that were part of this. One county did get excused by the federal court to go back to at large. 13 are still under the court order to have a single member. A couple counties have discussed possibly switching, but they've not done it, not made the switch, other than the one that I mentioned that has. And, the first step, if we want to do it, would be about $12,500 for the attorney and a political scientist to evaluate the demographics of District 1 to see if it still justifies having a single-member district there. And then the answer to that, if it says, you could change, the demographics have changed enough to support changing, then there will be some further evaluation needed. Then you'd have to go to the federal court to get permission, which would be an expense. But it may end with just the $12,500, because that may show that you don't have any basis to even change it, and it would just end right there, and you call it a day at that point. So.
But then you could spend over 40, 50, 60, whatever.
Maybe if you go all the way through the whole federal court process, yes, that very well could be where you end up.
Do you need some action from us? Do you need some direction?
Need direction on how you want to proceed.
I, for one, I don't have a problem with the concept. Today, I have a problem with the dollars. From where we are with recovering from the hurricane, with the uncertainty of where we're going to owe and what we're going to get reimbursed, I would love to, and I hate to kick cans down the road and not act on things where we've started, but just the finances scare me. And I hate to put this in motion, not with the uncertainty of that. So my 2 cents today is I don't have a problem with the concept, but I would love to wait until we were a little more financially solid.
And I agree with Commissioner Swindle. I don't think we should be spending that kind of money right now in a poor county.
And then when it gets further down, how much money are we really willing to spend?
You don't know till you go through the process.
Mr. Turner, any comment?
Mr. Chair, I like what Franklin County did, which was, if there was a movement locally that really felt passionate about this, I can't speak for all of us, and I don't want to ever put Mark out there, but I think that Mark would be very receptive to giving Michael Spellman's information to somebody if they were so inclined to want to, run that down. But I do got to echo what Commissioner Swindle and Commissioner Harris have said, which is, just having the uncertainties of where we're at financially. As you all know, I'm a big proponent of countywide voting. I think that all of our constitutional officers have to go into it, and I think that all of us do view it as our decisions are made on a countywide basis. And we can argue it all day long or debate it all day long, the pros and cons, but I'm 100% supportive of what you all are saying, which is not even putting it on the back burner. I would say for right now, we're taking it off of the oven and putting it in a cupboard somewhere for a little while. And then if it resurfaces, then by all means, we can engage that conversation. So.
Is that enough direction?
That's direction. Yeah.
Okay.
Got it? Okay. Next one, Mr. Lau.
Yeah, ratification of extensions to local state of emergency. We've had a month.
So moved.
So we're up to it. And by the way, Chairman did sign the 14th extension last Friday. So the 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th that you're ratifying.
That does require board action.
To ratify.
Okay, we had a motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Harris. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have some agenda additions here.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, there's the one item that was a staff report of mine that was under consent that we bumped it to under, it really should have been under staff reports. This is but it's in your books under consent, the declaration of surplus property and approval of listing agreement with Sugar Realty for 8 Monturo lots.
So moved.
The only reason I had it under staff reports, this is unusual. We're not proposing to put these up for sale. We're proposing to do land swaps to the extent we can to get lots that we want.
Perfect. Okay. I'll second the motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Swindle. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now I believe we're to the agenda additions. First one up is requesting funds for Davis Pratt Park. Riggers?
Make a motion to approve the 35,000, and I'll make the request again that you all please put this on the agenda whenever you get it, so it's not an item.
Second.
add-on.
Motion made by Commissioner Turner, seconded by Commissioner Harris. Any further discussion?
Yeah, the reason it wasn't on the agenda because we thought it didn't have to go on the agenda till the clerk called us. She called us. I know, well, we're doing it. And we're hoping, and we're hoping to get, we should get reimbursed 100%.
If not, you're coming out of Darrell Harris's commissioner's salary, whatever
Me
it
and
is.
Mitch have split it.
For the record, Henry LaBelle, Recreation Director, Ramiro Rodriguez. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Merry
Appreciate
Christmas,
it.
Ramiro.
Any further discussion?
None.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Ms. Emledge about the copier. Heard that one?
No, but what I,
Anybody find that odd?
yeah, what I understand, Charles,
I can speak to it. I can say the state legislature has a statute that says anytime you lease anything, the county commission has to approve it.
a copy
Can you put it on
machine?
consent?
Yeah.
It's just weird.
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
it can be.
Then why don't you put it on the consent agenda?
This was one with the timing. The agenda deadline had passed before, and the books had already been sent out to the board when we discovered that.
So that's Margaret's fault?
I think it's an excuse.
Yeah,
We'll get a motion
yeah,
on that.
now we see.
Hey,
Second, can we get a second?
I'll get you back.
How much money do they make right there amongst that
Motion
triangle?
moved by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Byrd. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Merry Christmas.
I wanted to hear what Margaret had to say.
You want to know about the coffee?
Tell by the look on her face, she just wasn't wanting to,
That was
she wasn't
enough.
wanting to deal with it.
Dying to talk about the coffee machine lease.
That'll be at tomorrow's discussion.
Won't be in the
I got that email. I was like, really? I've been delegated to the coffee machine.
It would be covered under the $10,000 threshold. It's a statute about the signing of.
$9.99.
Do you have something for us on the
Niners, you say
addendum of leave to economic development?
It's amended addendum to lease with the EDC and approval of license use agreement with FEMA. This is for their long-term recovery staff to occupy the EDC building that we lease to the EDC.
So moved.
And also,
Second.
and also to use county
Moved by
offices.
Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Turner. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Business by district. Mr. Swindle.
You want me to start?
Yes, sir.
I think, Mr. Chairman, we should go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 from now on. Start with me because I go longer.
Okay, go. Let's do it tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I yield.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
I'm good.
That it, really?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Starting a new leaf, buddy.
4 coming up here. District 4. I would like to take the opportunity to kind of continue on from Merry Christmas into the Happy New Year. And as we go into the Happy New Year, I would like to challenge my fellow commissioners and the staff of Hendry County. And I don't mean that to be anything negative. I mean it to be a proactive challenge as we move into the new year. Mr. Chapman has done a phenomenal job of assimilating a phenomenal team of high-quality staff that does a great job and continues to do a great job and has moved Hendry County forward remarkably and visibly over the last couple of years. And so I'm very excited to be a part of that. I'm sitting up here from the dais. I'm very excited to work with a board that gels and congenes and we're like-minded in our willingness to hear the issues and move Hendry County forward. But I don't want us to rest on those laurels. And if this means us coming together at a special meeting or at one of these meetings and talking about some priorities that we have as a board and putting that out there and asking our high-quality staff to continue to press harder, to be bolder, to move us to a spot to where in the year 2018, as we were poised for phenomenal growth, maybe one of the greatest growths for a rural area can happen within Hendry County over the next 6 months to a year to maybe a year and a half max. And as that happens, I hope that we're prepared. And I want us to continue to do things to be prepared. I don't want to get to those points and us not be prepared. And people look at us and say, well, you have known for 10 years it was coming and you're not ready. And so Now, whatever that means, and just off the top of my head and the notes that I was making, I would encourage Mr. Chapman to continue to build leadership and capacity amongst staff and to build depth and not rest. The great team he has is because of that, and I want to see that continue. Continue lowering fees and to make our processes streamlined through the county, as you've demonstrated here tonight and as you've been demonstrating, Ms. Simblage. And Commissioner Turner has been thumping us hard, and I think that it's not that I didn't believe him, but I believe him more now than ever, that code enforcement holds a lot of keys. That as folks come into this county, we need to look good, we need to be good, we need our blighted areas to be as addressed as we can without the handcuffs on us. And I would absolutely love to see that happen. I would love to find a way for us to fund the essential needs facility needs assessment that we were talking about. I know that the folks that work and live in this building, they do a phenomenal job. Some of them work in closets. And as we talk about growth and the exponential growth that we're going to have, we know that that's not going to continue to be sufficient. Our sheriff has told us over and over that our jail is 20 years past a rebuild. And we just cannot accept that. So I would like to encourage my fellow commissioners, I would like to encourage all the staff, and again, this is not meant to be anything other than a pep rally speech of let's go, rah, rah, let's get together, let's talk more, let's be bolder, and bring our A game to the forefront. And I'm not talking about maybe in June, I'm talking about, when we're back here in January. I'm all about let's create some big, hairy, audacious goals that we're all working toward, and we're all showing marked signs of improvement, and how are we getting there, and what do we need to do, and what do you need me to go do to help you? And I hope that everybody kind of understands where I'm driving at and what I'm getting, and I just think that it is a great place for us to be. We are in the driver's seat, and I want to see us be prepared as we move into 2018. That's all.
Great job. I'll vote for you.
Got to move.
You said it great, and we do have a great staff and some great people working in Hendry County. I've seen over the years, from 18 years ago, the improvement each now, and I think we're not topped out, but we're getting there pretty close, and everything's going good. And I'd like to wish all of them a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And just one little thing, I know we don't have the money, we might have the time but don't have the money, and I know just in LaBelle we got problems with homeless people all over the place, in the woods, under the bridges, and that's something for us to think about between now and January on how we can approach that. It might be something that we can do that don't cost us a bunch of money, because I know we don't have anything budgeted for the homeless. I've talked to Jennifer. We've talked about it before, but it's something we really need to think about.
Well, it's been a great year. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys. I tell most of you that all the time because it was a learning process for me, but you all are a great group to work with. My spirit is very comfortable with you all, and I'm so grateful for that. So I would say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, and I would like to see us do some things that we talked about that happened through the hurricane that we need to correct, for hoping that it don't come like that again, but there's just some things that we need to make sure we correct before that time come. Go back and cross our T's and dot our I's. That will make us better. We experienced some things that we had not experienced before, so we need to make sure we do a follow-through. Other than that, thank you so much.
Just going back to a couple of things they've said, I would really, really love to see the conversation between the city of Cluess and the city of LaBelle and ourselves to improve the corridor that go through both of our towns. There's still quite a bit of stuff that needs to be addressed in that area. If we have beautiful amenities here, we just do not put them out there the way they could be. We took some time and rode around the other day to see some of the stuff along the river we could do. Some of the stuff, when you drive down through the middle of LaBelle and Cluess, and there's properties and buildings there that if we could have the conversations with the commissioners in the city and the mayors, what can we do? If it takes a joint effort, what can we do? What do we have to do to make LaBelle and Clewiston both more pleasant when you drive through it? A lot of the towns you drive through in your northern communities, you see an older town, but that town, it really pops when you drive through it. It's just not just a blight that you close your eyes when you go through. So I believe those in the coming year, if we work together, and can combine this thing, we got to get past. We got to all come together and realize that it's Hendry County. We all live here. We all work here. Let's make this the best place it can be. We want to attract the businesses that are going to enhance what we have. We want to attract the people for the homes that's going to enhance what we have. Teachers, that's coming here to work. A lot of them drive in Fort Myers. They work here. They work in Glades County. So the housing situation is big. The homeless situation is big. But to go back to what we heard earlier, there's other things that need to be addressed here as well. Our youth. Most of the time I've heard it my whole life growing up here. We don't have anything to do. There's nothing for us here. So Clewiston is the same way. We really need to work on engaging our youth. We want our youth to stay here when they graduate. Let's give them something to take pride in and stay here for. It's pretty simple. If you build it, they will come. But we have some amazing properties. We just need to get them marketed properly. So as far as staff goes, thank you for putting up with me for a year. It's been, like you said, a learning process. I've worked with most of you for the past 18 to 20 years anyway. It doesn't matter. Most of you I've known my entire life. But it has been a learning process. This year looks like it might be a little more of a learning process. Commissioner Harris was smiling really big, so I'll call him all the time. But once again, that's the biggest thing. Let's take pride in our community, take pride in our employees, and let employees know how much they're appreciated. Because if they take pride, they take ownership, their jobs are all going to look better. So thank you all very much for all that you do. We had one speaker, but he left. He said he'd call you tomorrow.
Okay, I appreciate that. I see him every day at the post office. And Winn-Dixie and post office. But anyway, on the EDC hired a grants writer, and I think that grants writer could play a part in just what he said about when you go into the cities and you see the different buildings and stuff like that. I think that would probably come under that EDC grant writer, and I think they're going to work on it full time, so I think they'll come up with something.
Anything else?
Just remember, when they come up with something, it may very well take political will to engage and support staff to implement said ideas. And have we gotten a solid date on the Hendry Glades joint meeting?
The January 9th, sir.
Okay.
5 p.m. at the Glades County Vocational Technical Center.
Anybody have anything else?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Clerk don't have anything.
Cemeteries.
Cemeteries. Everybody take your shoes off. We're going to be here a while.
I wrote y'all a letter describing, y'all asked me to come back the first meeting, the meeting in December, and tell you what I had on the books and what I didn't have on the books. So I wrote you kind of a detailed letter about how many lots were reserved, how many people were paying sporadically, how many I've got reserved, with how many people are not paying. I've taken 11 lots back this past week, took another one back today. I'm going to be taking some more back after the first of the year. Y'all are more than welcome to go through these two books. That's the lots I've taken back. It's a lot of work.
In inception, that's the lots you've taken back, or just in this past calendar?
No, just since we started the resolution.
How many years is that?
Mark, we started this back in
2 or 3.
So
4.
15 years of work. Okay.
Say, Barbara, one quick question. 54 people with 103 lots taken back.
I dealt with 54 people, and the 54 people had 103 lots that were reserved that I took back over the years.
That over 1 year or 2?
No.
15 years.
Talking about
15 years.
since we started this.
You took back, so that's a lot.
I took back 70 in Ridgelawn, and I've taken back 27 in Harlem. So
How many years?
add them up, that's 200 lots.
15 years.
15, okay. 15 years, that's not a lot. For 15 years, that's
Well, I
not a
was
lot.
looking at percentage, it's a lot of percentage.
But if you met the minutes percentage of people out there I did, that's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket.
Well, it,
And the lot's important to know, if we hadn't taken them back, that cemetery would be full, and we haven't moved on to the second phase of that yet, and we would be in trouble. Those lots were taken back specifically because that cemetery was full. We come to the board and requested that the 4 lots that were flat headstones only be moved to above-ground lots, and if we hadn't have done that 6, 7 years ago, Fort Deneau would have been full.
Mr. Chairman,
Things to keep in mind.
Mr. Chairman, you have more, please, y'all take offense if you need to, yell at me and say, no, I want to hear more of this. But Commissioner Wills, you have more knowledge about this subject than I ever desire to have. I would ask that, so first off, let me ask this. Ms. Butler, what's utopia for you? And then what do we think is reasonable, and how do we find a middle ground for that?
Well, I've checked in the other counties, the counties our size.
Uh-huh.
There's one county that has a payment plan. The people have to have to be at a certain criteria to be able to make a payment plan. Nobody else can do it. Out of 3 cemeteries, and this is Okeechobee County, they have 3 cemeteries. They have two people on payment plan. That's it.
how did they get on it?
I think they were almost destitute. When I talked to their, all this goes through the county administrator's office. Clerk's office does nothing. I checked with.
Can I ask something that's more coarse?
Huh?
Are there any programs out there where you, let's say you have something that is, you have a indigent person or someone who has no family whatsoever?
County buries them, indigents.
Okay, do we bury them in a full plot?
No, they're cremated.
Okay, we cremate them.
When did they start that? 'Cause I know originally we were.
I know they started within
Yeah.
2008
Yeah, but
because
when
Commissioner
we
Wills,
started
when I first got on board, I know it's happened within my tenure, because when we first got on board, it was a big scuttlebutt because some people were requesting that the county bury them at full cost. And so we had a conversation with our funeral service providers. I don't think they really appreciated it, but we asked for the cremation process because it's tremendously cheaper to cremate someone than it is to bury them.
It is, but not all of them have been done, and I can take you to the lots, because I marked most of them.
Yes, sir.
And show you the vaults, and show you the wooden boxes. Because when it's a county burial, you don't get all the bells and whistles.
So did we pay for that?
We did, the county did.
But since
And the
2008?
disturbing part-
Since 2000?
Yes, sir, since
Okay.
2008. We can. It'll take a little bit of time. I can take you out to Fort Deneau, and there's a whole section of indigent burials right there in one spot. Every cemetery has a certain area that we try to keep the indigents in certain areas, so there's no conflict of families and different things. I understand Ms. Butler's stress. Trust me, I spent days out there on the phone, standing there on the phone in the rain and everything else. I understand. And I'm not saying that everyone needs a payment plan, but there are some people that if you have a husband and a wife situation, I get it. He can't buy the lot, she passes, or he passes, she can't buy the lot. If they barely pay for one lot, we need to give them the opportunity to reserve a lot, in my opinion. But most of the counties around here do not have county cemeteries. They are all privately owned. That makes a huge difference.
Commissioner Wills, do you think that are you receptive to a sunset? Are you receptive to a time frame? Do you have a little bit more of a solution in mind?
Just to clarify, sunset meaning said husband passes and the wife can't afford it, you say, okay, we'll give you 3 years.
Yes, sir.
We don't want a payment plan, but you got 3 years to come in and pay for it.
Which is a payment plan, by the way, Commissioner Swindle, but
Then
I ain't
something
gonna
like
argue.
zero down and 3 years to get it done. Yeah.
That's huge.
Well, 3 years is a long time.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm just throwing 3 years
But
out.
yeah,
there.
we're just throwing stuff out there to try to find
The way the
resolution.
policy is now, you have a year to pay with no interest. After that year, it starts to accrue interest. I don't know what, I'm assuming it's just a regular, 7%? So at that point, it takes over. I can tell you that a lot of these lots are lots that are in the old section, and you'll never be able to sell them. Those lots are 18 by 20, 20 by 20s. You run into situations now where those families may have a person buried in here, a person buried in there. It's going to be an issue. We had an indigent burial in a lot out there that's 20 by 20. Now the family thinks they own the whole 20 by 20. So it's just different situations you're going to run into.
When
All
you
the
say
cemeteries aren't the
20
same.
by 20, you mean 20 inches by 20
No,
inches?
sir, 20 foot by 20 foot.
That's a
Hell,
big,
That's in the old part.
That's in the
though.
old
What
part.
are you
That's
That's
right.
in the
talking
old
about
part.
right now?
We don't-
20
We
foot.
don't mess with the old part that much
But
anymore.
we have.
Hey, hold on, guys, hold on. I just fixed a big issue right there.
Yeah.
We need to fix that line in the sand, literally.
Well, you're losing 8 lots.
Yeah, it's a human being. There isn't a 20-footer out there. What are we giving an indigent?
That was family burials back then.
That's in the old part of the cemetery.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
they don't do
old-
that.
old
Back
part.
then, there's one lot there that was an indigent lot
Yeah.
originally, and the sheriff's department did the burials back then. Actually, I was in Road and Bridge still then. Road and Bridge come out,
So indigent,
they marked it, sheriff's department dug the shovels and they buried them.
I don't know what the volume is of people that we have that are passing away that have to do that, but I mean, is a plot always a big,
Let me give you an example today.
the little ones?
The woman comes out, she's going to pick out a lot.
Why can't we talk
you know,
about this private? Why
and-
can't we hash
and
this out
She
private?
picks out 4. She can't pay for the one.
Hmm?
But she reserves 3 more. She's not gonna pay for them lots.
Well, she can't.
They gave her 20 years.
The thing is, regardless, you can't use the lot until that lot's paid for. If you come in and you reserve 20 lots, you can only use the lot once it's paid for. Most situations that's happened in the past, I can tell you, and I told Ms. Butler the same thing in the hallway. We've met families out there, the husband, the wife, and all of a sudden the wife says, well, I want to get all my kids a lot. Well, the reality is the kids aren't going to be buried there. They're going to be married. They're going to move with their own family. They're going to go away. So, yeah, 4, 6, 8. It used to be you could reserve as many as you wanted. Then they cut it back to 4. But the trick to that was you'd have the husband would buy 4 lots, and then the son or the daughter would buy 4 lots. So there was ways around that as well. And people find their way around us. There's a lot there. And I know it's a headache for Ms. Butler. It's a headache for Alan. So it's a headache for everybody.
So how would this not work? If you have a spouse that passes away and you want the lot next to him, you've got 1 year to come in and pay for it. Other than that, if you're just reserving lots, you got to pay for them. We're not holding lots, reserving lots without payment.
And let's don't limit it to you have a spouse. Let's limit it to a family member, or I don't know what you call that, but because you have a
Immediate family member, somebody.
And that's
like that.
what family is.
But then
That's
numbers.
what they're doing now.
But just do 1, right?
no, but they're legally, Ms. Butler, they're reserving 3 and 4 and 5 is what you're
Say
saying.
you got 1. If
Yeah, but they say, okay, I got 2 kids and my husband. Mama died. I got 2 kids and a husband. They want 3 lots. So they're reserving 3.
Okay, so if you're going to reserve 3, what Commissioner Swindle's just proposed, I believe, is if you have the means to reserve 3, that's fine, but you're going to pay for 3 lots right now. If not, you're going to pay for 1, and you're going to reserve 1, and that's your cap. You're not going to get 3 lots.
But they have a year to pay for it.
If you want to pay for 4, 5, 6, whatever you want to pay for, you
I'm
can
gonna pay.
You can go buy them right now. You can go.
Yeah, well, I'll sell as many as they want.
Right.
But my thing is
Out of the reserve.
it ties us up.
I understand that. So that's what I'm saying. And we need to move online with this as well. We've got to start getting some stuff online so that we don't have a human being that's dealing with this. I don't know how hard of a system this is to write.
I have every county that I talk to, I ask, do you have a cemetery program software? No.
This is a business. If there's anyone out there in the world that's
No.
listening,
So
this
how-
is a
Now I'm
business that
doing a
somebody needs to
payment
get
plan,
into.
so I'm doing financing.
Right,
I don't
everything.
have time for this.
No, you don't need to be doing that.
I've got 9 staff that I don't have anymore. I do not have the time to do this.
I don't think
Why would
anybody-
it not work then to say, to what's wrong with then?
What's wrong with that,
Exactly what we
Ms.
said.
Ms. Butler? What's wrong with that?
Your husband dies,
That's it.
here's his lot, you got 1 year to pay for yours. That's
Commissioner
it.
Wills,
That's it.
Commissioner Wills says to us that we need to be cognizant that there are going to be people that pass and are not going to have a means. And he is saying vehemently he is not receptive to cutting it off and not having any version of a payment plan. Correct?
I'm not. Like you said.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
2 lots, fine. 1
Okay.
lot, you reserve a lot.
So why
I've
can't?
met too many people over 18 years span. I've met them there myself.
So Ms. Butler, how much does that cut down your threshold of having to touch this if we just do? You can buy 1 and you can reserve 1. By the way, within 730 days or 365 days, whatever the number is that we decree, if you haven't paid for number 2,
You lost
back.
number
it's
2.
gone.
It's gone.
And how much is a lot?
$700.
700. So
And can you do it where you don't take payments, it's just 1 payment? If you want to come next year and pay for it at that deadline or whatever. You don't want them coming in giving 20 here and 20 a week and stuff, because that's what's eating your time up.
Well, they come back and they say, no, I paid more than that.
That's what I'm
You know,
saying, don't
so
do that,
we
take
have
1
to go
payment.
through the
payment.
whole system.
Do 1 payment. Say you got until December 12th of 2018.
But no, I want to come in and give you $20 a week.
No.
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 You're going to
That's
come
what they
in
wanna do.
and you're going to
Nope.
pay twice or once or 3 times a year, but that's it. Whatever we decree, that's what it's going to be. People aren't going to like it. We're going to be villainized. It is what it is. But you're losing money now touching something X number of times at $20 a time and all that stuff. People don't understand that. They don't want to understand it, Ms. Butler. That's why we have to be mindful of that. So, and you're bringing this to our attention.
One payment plan's perfect. You know what? You got a year. No interest, you pay that in a year. No, we're not gonna take $25. I agree with that. Let's take the payment part out. But let's give them a year. You can pay for that lot within a year. They come back
I
and pay
make
for
that
it,
in the
or
form
not.
of a motion, as long as we're able to still conduct business.
Second.
Okay, and Mark, you'll
We'll-
prepare
we'll-
the paperwork?
we'll clear it up.
1 year, and be one lot.
No, I think it's 1 and 1.
Pay for one.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Reserve only one.
Yes,
Only
ma'am.
one.
Yes, ma'am.
And then once they pay for the second one, if they want to do it again, that's fine, but they have to still pay for one.
And no one is to be angry whenever, your brother has to be buried 300 yards that way. That's it. Unless somebody's receptive
They're gonna
to
be mad.
moving plots into this size right here. I don't understand why people don't do that.
So Barbara, do they come in sometimes?
I don't know.
They can't pay for the first lot?
Yeah.
They just reserve them and they don't have the means to pay for the one they
You
reserve.
put $70 down, that's it.
But once you
That's all you
bury
ever see.
them,
That's it,
No,
and
no,
then
no.
you write them.
They're not buried till
When they go in the dirt,
And they come back.
that has to be cleared up.
You cannot be buried until the lot is paid in full.
that's fine.
Well, that's, y'all, it's fine and dandy, but then it's just like week before last, 2 weeks ago, they had one lot they had 2 people buried, they had one lot reserved, and they went out there and put a triple headstone.
I don't even know what that means.
Covers 3 lots.
Three people.
They already put
Covers
it.
half of the 2 outside and the full center.
So if they
So
don't,
what you're saying is that they haven't even paid for the third lot.
They hadn't paid for
But they've
their
covered
lot,
it up.
And I sent them a letter saying, you can't do this, you have got to come in and pay for that lot. It came back. No
Non-deliverable.
address.
Well, part of that, Shane ain't gonna wanna hear this, but part of that falls back when the headstones are inspected. They should know if the lot's owned or not before they put a headstone on it. And that's a simple call that Sherry makes, because I've asked many times, do they own
Sherry
this
made-
lot? Where's it at? So,
Sherry made the call, supposed to have been a double headstone, they went out there and said it.
well, they give you a drawing. That's
They have
not,
to have a
it's not a
permit.
he said, she said. It's a drawing. It gives you every dimension of that. It tells you how thick the slab is, the border. It tells you every dimension on there to the inch. So there's not a guessing point. If it showed a triple headstone, she knows that.
Do they have to have a permit to put the headstone?
They have to have a permit, but doesn't cost anything.
anyway,
The county agrees, the county looks at that, make sure the lots come through properly on the lot, because what they was doing in the past, let's just put it all out there.
Would
What they was
you-
doing in the
would this
past, they would
motion
buy
make your life
coping and it
easier?
covered
Okay.
all 2 lots.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question.
now they don't.
Okay, daddy dies, mama pays for hers in a year. Now she wants to reserve.
No
another
more
one.
reserved. Everything else is paid up front. No more reserves.
Okay. It's just husband and wife.
Husband and wife,
Or,
husband and
like I
spouse,
said, immediate
whatever.
payment. You
Yeah.
2 lots. You buy a lot, you reserve a lot. You buy one, and that, you know what? This is only the second time that's changed. Originally, it was you buy a lot, reserve as many as you wanted. Then it went from buy a lot, reserve 4 lots.
But it's
Now
1
you're doing
year.
just buy a lot, reserve 1 lot. It's the
1
same
year and then
thing.
1 payment.
Well, the payment thing is gonna change a little bit different.
Exactly. Well, at least it gives them the opportunity to get the lot. That's my only concern.
Right.
Because not everyone has $1,400 to walk in there and throw down for 2 lots.
But you do have 365 days to get your $700 to fix said issue on your second lot. You better pay for your first one right
Put the money
now.
back anyway and just pay
And,
it one
and,
time.
and no payment,
No payment.
no payment. We're not taking
There's
10,
no
we're not
payment
taking
plan.
20 down. We're not taking in next month. You
Okay, but I'll
pay
finish
the
out the
fund.
ones that I've already got.
Oh,
You're gonna have to, yeah. I
But
think you're
as
gonna
of
have to,
today, anybody
unfortunately.
else walk in the door, then you're gonna follow that procedure.
Attorney
All right,
Lapp,
we got
Attorney Lapp, are you having heartburn?
No, I'm not having heartburn. I just want to repeat it to make sure that we're
Yes, sir.
all in agreement. So the resolution, whatever number it was, that was adopted 15 or so years ago would be repealed, and you'd have a new resolution in its place that the only reservations that would be allowed would be you may reserve 1 lot for a spouse if you're concurrently purchasing 1 lot, at least 1 lot.
I don't like spout. I don't like language.
I don't like the language there either. I think you can purchase 1 lot and you can reserve 1 lot, period.
For
'Cause that may
whomever.
be a
You want to
single
bury your
mom, a single
dog
dad,
or
it could be
whatever. I
anything,
mean,
so.
you just got to pay for it.
But we don't have dogs.
Or it's gonna
but,
go away, right?
Dog
So,
gonna be buried with me, Mark. So you just got to deal with it. But
cremate them.
okay, it's just mean. I can't believe you're gonna make me burn my dog. Do you not have a heart? You remember what we went through with all the monkeys? My God.
So you may pay for 1, reserve 1. The one you're reserving, you must pay within 1 year with no periodic payments. It's a lump sum payment at any point within the 1 year, up to 365 days is the deadline.
Okay.
And then there's no deposit needed for the one being reserved. Am I understanding? So-
She doesn't want to
take any
touch
money.
anything except one
It's
time.
not going to require a deposit, but it'll
Yep.
show reserved in the book, is what it'll be, or on the computer now.
Yeah, they signed an agreement.
Yep.
And how can you do that up front? So that they sign an affidavit, they get it all up front to keep you again. Does she have to turn around in
They better have
60 days and say?
record of their copy.
That's right, but I want to also take it off of her back that in 355 days, she doesn't have to
Send them a letter. or
send them a
something.
letter and say, oh, by the way, don't forget to come pay.
No.
We need to put the onus on them to take care of it, not her.
I think it's important that certain areas be highlighted and initial, so, you know, you went over this, that in 365 days, and after that time, I will not call you, I will not write you, it's your responsibility.
He makes up the paperwork.
No, the only problem,
We're still trying to
Yeah.
make your life easier. Is that?
Take the
Is
pressure
that-
off me.
get
the
that
only
there?
problem with that, to be
Okay.
honest with every one of you in that situation, the last thing they're looking at is highlighted areas. I've told them you can't plant this, you
100%.
can't plant that, you
Yeah.
can't have this.
They-
30 days later, they go out there, they planted that, they
Yeah.
planted this, and they have this.
Yeah.
Clearly, but that's where I mean we have to have the cemetery police because I'm dead serious when I say, and now that we're talking about it, I need to go ahead and vet this a little bit too. We're getting hammered on our ridge lawn cemetery and the appearance of it, and the cypress tree or the cedar trees and all that stuff. So I don't know what y'all have surmised from a staff standpoint, but we got to do something to clean her up. Looking a little RUFF.
Like I said before, family members don't know, because I know my grandmother passed. My granddad went out and put these two big trees out there.
Yes, ma'am.
Where he wasn't the one that went, you know, and got the lot, so he really didn't know.
No, exactly
You know,
right.
so they really don't know, and they just, you know, they go out and put what they want because they think it's okay. So they got these two big old trees out there.
Yeah, I can guarantee you Betty Lou thought that was her house.
And in that situation, usually we'll take our business card, we'll put it on a stake, and I'd get cussed out on Saturday and Sunday, and they'd cry on my shoulder Monday and move it. Just the way it works, so, been there and dealt with all this.
Yeah.
Actually, Alan said he thought I should have to come back and
When I
deal with
send
it
the-
now.
When I send the letters out and everything, it ain't the board they're mad at, it's me.
Because he didn't.
That's the plan, Miss Butler.
Well, I don't
As far as
know.
Ridge
not
Lawn
Miss
goes,
Butler's plan.
we need to work on getting that
My
water
plan,
system
not
fixed.
not my ballgame.
I don't disagree. I'm just being mean.
And we,
Okay, we have a
Okay,
motion.
going on, we got a motion and a
When does
second.
this start?
January 1, 2018.
Yeah, make it clean.
It's
on
gonna be
January
here
1.
in,
Fair enough? Does that work for you?
all right,
Nice
motion by
clean day.
Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Harris. Further discussion.
And
We
should-
will have the public hearings obviously during the month of January, or because we're taking action, we don't have, no, we have to.
Just a
This is not an ordinance, this is a
Oh, okay.
resolution, so you can approve it today, but it's not prepared, and I'm going to prepare it, and you can authorize the chairman to sign it.
We
And
will
I
do,
think-
and then, but it'll be retroactive, so she will go on January 1st, the new policy starts. We're decreeing that tonight, and then the first meeting in January, we will vote and formally adopt.
Effective 1/1/18, and anyone
energy.
who's already in the payment plan, they get to finish.
They keep to stay where they're at.
Ms. Butler can clean that up. Ms.
They-
Butler, do you think that this cuts down on your workload?
It will,
Okay, good.
you know, because I'm not gonna send them a letter or anything, I'm just gonna go in there and when it says, this is their time that you're up, and say, no pay.
Ms. Butler,
Take
Ms.
my
Butler, are you
computer.
somewhat happy with the proposal that we put forward?
Yeah,
It's not gonna hurt you.
that works.
See how it works? Yeah. And Commissioner Wills is happy too, because we're still on the same page. I like it.
Just call me, I'll go back to the cemetery.
Just, this was not an agenda item, so if I would just ask if you'd invite public input, if there is any.
Do we have any public input?
I'm dying to hear if someone, no pun intended,
Buried tonight.
wants to discuss it.
No one wants to.
Ms. Denny's
they
like,
got
really?
bigger
He went
fish to
there.
fry, Do we need to go ahead and vote on that? We had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. We're all set?
Who made the motion in a second?
Commissioner Turner made the motion.
You made the second.
Mr. Chair, I need to correct something from earlier. The next regular scheduled Board of County Commissioners meeting is at January 9th in Clewiston. The joint meeting with Hendry and Glades County will be that Thursday of the same week on January 11th,
Good.
What time?
5 p.m.
Where was that meeting going to take place?
At the Vocational Technical Center, just north of Moorhaven on 27.
Got it. Is it still empty?
Anybody have anything else?
5 p.m., ma'am.
I know you're getting ready to adjourn, and you can do that, but just, you're going to stay around for 30 seconds for East Hendry County Drainage District, so don't walk away.
Set. This meeting's adjourned. Got to re-adjourn.